So Sean, why are we dressed like this right now?
Oh, we're looking fabulous, aren't we? We're getting ready to go out to the gala dinner of our 47th annual conference in Bristol. We had a great welcome dinner last night, but tonight is the big one where we all get dressed up. The theme is Hollywood, and I'm really looking forward to see what people have come up with. But You're looking great.
Thank you. You too. So just for our listeners and viewers, can you give us a quick overview of I guess, your background, a little bit about you, and also a background of ITFA as well?
Sure. Well, so I have a couple of jobs. I only get paid for one, which is either I'm either very devoted or very stupid. My main job is as head of legal at Sumitomo Mitsui Banking Corporation in London. I head up the legal function for the EMEA region. I have a more commercial role at SMBC as a special advisor to the trade finance department. In practice, that means I do a lot of work on fintech, pushing our fintech agenda, and we've made a lot of investments. I've joined the board of a fintech, for example. That's been really interesting and has fitted in very well with ITFA. So what is ITFA? Well, we've been around just over 20 years. We started in the forfaiting market in 1999. The forfaiting obviously is older than that, but the association was set up at the end of the 90s with something like 7 or 8 members. We're now nudging the 300 mark. We've got committees across the world from Australia, China, the Americas, all across Europe. And we've been expanding. We've expanded and moved out from forfaiting to all other forms of trade finance, so supply chain finance, fintech, insurance. It's a really broad coverage now and growing all the time.
So look, it's been quite the year for ITFA and also quite the year for trade, and we've really enjoyed quite a few initiatives in terms of really promoting the importance of trade finance across lots of different angles. I'm actually going to start, if you don't mind, with a kind of quick fire round of questions. So you covering a topic in 60 seconds or so, and I'm gonna just throw them at you. So global trade is almost back up in terms of volumes to pre-pandemic levels. Are trade finance lending levels the same?
Yeah, they're lagging a bit behind. So last year, the latest figures are telling us there was a drop of around 10% in global trade, but trade finance itself dropped by a lot more than that, down to around about 2016-17 levels. It's a big drop. Why is there a difference? I think it's partly the nervousness of the banks. And that I should say that it's different across different products. So as we expected, supply chain finance actually ramped up quite a lot. I know that from my own experience at SMBC. The tenors moved out, the liquidity and the funding that went into that moved up. But things like documentary trade, traditional trade did decrease by quite a lot. So that's decreased the ability to do trade finance. I think the main reason is that the banks are just being very careful. They were waiting to see if, and fortunately they weren't, many casualties of the pandemic. And that's largely because, as we know now with hindsight, there was so much government support, but we didn't know that at the beginning. So banks did hold back and they funded key customers, but not the full range of customers. And we're still not quite there yet. And obviously that lag and that shortfall for those other customers, other than the key customers, is affecting the figures. But it's getting pretty quickly back to where it was.
Yeah, very interesting, and we can see that in the recent ICC trade registered data. So next question. Are banks lending less? And you mentioned nervousness. And what about NBFI, so non-bank financial institutions?
Yeah, so they didn't really need to step up. Fortunately, they're always there. Of course, we know that during the post-Lehman crisis, the GFC, they did step in very effectively. They didn't need to do that. They probably did lend a little bit more, support a little bit more, but it didn't need to happen. It was happening really at the central government level. So that didn't really happen because it didn't need to.
Great. Okay. Supply chain finance, the saga, has I think we did a panel about this quite recently.
We did.
Has it impacted or tarnished the reputation of supply chain
Not
finance?
at all. We had a great panel actually earlier on today, when he whose name shall not be mentioned actually was mentioned several times. Of course, I'm talking about Greensill. And it's very clear, and we saw this already right at the beginning, I can speak also from personal experience, that the bit of Greensill that actually was proper supply chain finance performed very well, performed properly, performed as it should. And the drop in funding, the vacuum, if you like, the potential vacuum, because of the withdrawal of Greensill, was actually filled very, very quickly by the banks and other platforms. So no, it hasn't. It's also come out very well from the various parliamentary inquiries into the Greensill collapse. They concluded there was no need to further regulate supply chain finance. Remember that banks, of course, themselves as suppliers are regulated separately. But there was no need to regulate the product anymore. So that's good. There was also a big vote of confidence in trade credit insurance, which underpinned some of the Greensill portfolio and got caught up a little bit in the mud. That's performed well. And there was a suggestion that made by certain people that trade credit insurance was counter-cyclical. The parliamentary inquiry did not agree with that. And I'd say they were correct. It is not counter-cyclical. Yeah. Insurers won't insure bad risks, just like banks won't lend to bad risks. And that's all it is.
Okay. Next question, Libor. A bank is pulling their hair out over Libor, or rather the Libor transition.
Yes. Okay, well, as you can see, I've already lost my hair.
Not in the last year.
Not in the last year. I haven't lost any more hair over Libor. Look, it's been, for lawyers, and as I said, that's my day job, it's been, I think, probably the biggest project I've had to be involved with in my bank, certainly one of the most expensive. It's slightly unfortunate. Tomorrow we have someone from the Bank of England talking to us about Libor. It's unfortunate that the things that are happening now, i.e. term rates, synthetic Libor, that we didn't know this at the beginning because they would considerably have eased the transition. But we're now in a position where we've got the right replacements for Libor. It's still a huge logistical exercise. You and I, of course, have published the Libor Hub, the TFG ITFA collaboration, publishing some very useful guidance for the MRPA market, which is a large part of our distribution market for our members. We're about to publish some amendment agreements to deal with Libor transition. A much smaller deal, I think, than many people thought it would be. So yeah, it's a big logistical problem within banks. It's just the volume of contracts. But actually, it's not an existential threat as it appeared to be at one time potentially.
Yeah, and great job to you guys for putting out some really important messages at the right time. And I think there's still a little bit to go, but we're nearly there. So
yes.
Yeah. So next question: did we digitize trade during the pandemic?
No, so everybody thinks this. Again, there was another panel that came to that conclusion. We used electronic signatures a lot more, but that is not digitization of trade. For some people, it's like, well, now I can use DocuSign or Adobe Sign or whatever it might be. There's a lot more to it than that. And there's certainly increased focus on digitization, proper digitization, by which I mean platformization, by which I mean digitization of trade documents, something that's been a big theme at this conference. But we didn't achieve that in 2020, nor was there substantially actually more investment in it. There's a number of reasons for that. Partly it's because I think that the smaller banks are still waiting on the sidelines to come in to this. It's an expensive proposition. There's a lot of legacy systems. So yeah, there's definitely increased focus, and every bank will tell you it's on the agenda, but the investment has not gone in yet. The important thing, though, is, as I say, digitalization is on the agenda, and it will happen probably a little bit sooner, but it didn't happen in 2020.
Fine. Okay, next question. Have trade credit insurance claims gone up as a result of the pandemic?
No, not as a result of the pandemic. So, I mean, not materially. And that's because, again, something I've just mentioned, which is government support. That actually there were very few collapses. Those companies that did collapse, for example, some of the commodity traders in Singapore, that was indirectly because of the pandemic. There are some claims, obviously, on that, but it's not a material part of the of their exposure. So claims have not gone up. Where claims have been made, they've been paid. It's still very solid. It's a very robust industry. Like I said, clean bill of health from the Treasury Parliamentary Group, looking at Greensill. So the industry is very solid. We had a panel on this, an underwriter, saying that they're still going ahead with underwriting that risk. So it's not that there are not the huge claims that will make underwriters withdraw.
Yeah. Okay. And final question. Are we making good moves to green up trade finance, or is this just a greenwashing ESG exercise?
I don't think it's greenwashing. I think we're at the light green stage, so we're not fully green. And I think part of the reason for that, and that's another big theme of the conference, is that there is just so much to choose from. How do you go green? Do you use the UN Sustainable Development Goals? Are you trying to comply with the EU taxonomy? We're going to have a UK taxonomy. There are disclosure requirements. There are sort of private standards in sustainable loans. The LMA, a whole bunch of people have released principles on ESG loans. So one doesn't really know where to turn, and one doesn't know what it means to be green yet. We've set up an ESG committee to sort of help us navigate our way through that jungle. But it's like digitization, it's definitely happening. It's definitely on the agenda, and it's definitely going to stay on the agenda. So we're getting greener, and I don't think it's greenwashing what we're doing. It's just a lighter shade of green for the moment.
Great, thank you, Sean, and that's the end of our quick fire. So it's been quite the year for ITFA. What are the highlights if you kind of take a step back, 1 year ago and looking at where we are today? Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, I think probably the highlight is that not only did we survive the pandemic as an association, we actually grew. So obviously, come March 2020. We were in the throes of planning for a Singapore conference, which we sadly had to cancel. And there was an existential question about what we do with ourselves. We moved up our webinar program. We took the time actually to focus on some of our initiatives, especially in the fintech area, our distribution, our DNI and TFDI in the origination and distribution space. It gave us a little bit of time out from the busy travel schedule to concentrate on those strategic projects, and we did those very well. But at the same time, we also grew the membership. So it was a big challenge in 2020. We had only done a few webinars. We did over 2020 and the beginning of 2021 around 60 webinars. Wow. So it was a fabulous output, and I'm really proud of us for having risen to the challenge.
Great. And in terms of, I guess, just looking over the last 2 days, it's been jam-packed and we've had some really great debates, some incredible panels. What have been the highlights for you?
Well, our opening speaker was fantastic. Joanna Birch-Brown, who's a philosophy professor here at Bristol University, challenging us on our thought process around ESG and green finance. She's not a banker, so she has a completely different take on this. And it was, and the problem, as I've said with ESG, is that there are so many ways you can go green, so many things you can choose from. We really sort of need to step back a little bit and think about what we're doing and why we're doing it. And she was really great on that. So that was a great, she was very amusing as well. Mm-hmm. And that was a great...
Sweets on our head.
Sweets on our head. That was good. So that was a great opener. But then the quality of the panels afterwards and the speakers was fantastic. The themes being really largely around ESG and digitization, but also dealing, with regulation. We've had the Dear CEO letter very recently, to which we've responded, and we've had a good reaction to our response, trying really to deal with the practical issues that arise out of that. So that's been great. But I think probably the highlight, and we'll see the pinnacle of it tonight, I hope, is all the networking.
Yeah.
So it's been great that people have come in from wherever they could. We got people who are trying to come in even from Ukraine, sadly couldn't get visas, but people are trying to come in from so many different places because they want to network again. Yep. And we do that to perfection.
Great, and it's been a truly incredible event so far, and really looking forward to tonight as well. And I guess final question, and I know you haven't got your crystal ball right now, but next 12 months, what does that look like for yourselves at ITFA?
Right, well, what we're going to do is try and grow the membership even more. We finished the merger with a sister association in the US, so that they've got the North America covered. We really want to look at South America. That's really the only part of the world where we don't have any significant membership. So that's one thing I want to do. The other thing I want to do, actually, with the changes in the law that we've been advocating, we had Sarah Green from the Law Commission speak very clearly and in a very illuminating way about the change in the law that we'll get in the UK around digital trade instruments. Really, our focus, and I want to make this, I hope, one of the biggest success stories in ITFA is to recreate a forfaiting market, but a digital forfaiting market. People want it. It's not possible for legal reasons, but all the providers, the technology providers, are there. It's actually quite easy to do technically or technologically. We just need to make sure that it works. And we're ready to launch that, and I really want us to push on that next year. So those two things, growing membership and creating or recreating a digital forfaiting market. Those will be the big ticket items for 2022.
Great, Sean, and thanks. Really ambitious and bold aspirations, and we can't wait to join you along the journey. But look, we'll leave you to it, and back to the red carpet we go.
Thanks a lot.